Hello everybody, welcome to another edition of the Shiur. We'd like to thank our sponsors for this week and also wish a refuah shlema to Ram ben Sarah Gital and Le'ilui Nishmat David ben Simcha Ruach Hashem Tinichenu Began Eden. Today, or for these next few weeks rather, we're in a period of mourning over the students of Rabbi Akiva, which is why during the Omer we don't shave, we don't listen to music, we don't hold weddings or other smachot. And we'd like to know what's the story behind the students of Rabbi Akiva. Maybe we can gain some insight and maybe understand a little bit why we're mourning, so it will be maybe more meaningful to us. And the source for this episode in our history is found on Yevamot Samech Bet Amud Bet 62b, and the Gemara tells us over there the following story. Amru, 12,000 zugim talmidim hayu lo Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva had 12,000 pairs of students, Migavat ad Antipras, from this city to that city, two names of cities. They spanned across a wide range of area. V'chulan metu beperek echad, and all of them died in one time zone, in one time of the year, one tkufa. Mipnei, why did they die? Shelo nahagu kavod ze lazeh, because they did not conduct themselves with honor towards one another. V'haya ha'olam shamem, and the world was desolate, the world was empty. Rashi explains the Torah was forgotten. Ad sheba Rabbi Akiva etzel raboteinu shebedarom, until Rabbi Akiva approached the rabbis in the south. V'shana'a lahem, and he taught them. Who were these rabbis in the south? Rabbi Meir, that's Rabbi Meir Balanes, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, that's Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Elazar ben Shamoa. So there were 5 students. Rabbi Akiva lost all of his 24,000, and he started again with these 5. Vehem hem ha'emidu Torah, and they resurrected the Torah. They brought it back up to its prominence. Ota sha'a tana kula metu mipesach v'ad atzeret. At that time they taught that these students, the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva, died from Pesach to Shavuot, between Pesach and Shavuot. Amar Rav Chama bar Abba v'item Rav Chia bar Avin kula metu mitara'ah. They all died a very terrible, a miserable death. Maihi, what death did they die? Amar Rav Nachman Askara. The name of the death was Askara. Askara is an illness that is primarily in the throat. It's a sort of a strangulation, chas v'shalom. And all 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva died of this malady. Now I'd like to take this Gemara and dissect it a little bit with you guys, and maybe we can come out with some points. The first thing I'd like to discuss with you is the presentation of 12,000 zugim talmidim, 12,000 pairs of talmidim. Now we know that a pair is 2. 12,000 times 2 in higher mathematics is 24,000. Why did the Gemara have to present it as 12,000 pairs of talmidim? Why can't it present it as the number that it is, 24,000 individual talmidim? And the answer is because the Torah that is learned between chavrutot, that between partners that are learning together, is a completely different quality of Torah than somebody who learns without a chavrutah, than somebody who learns without a learning partner. The same goes for a shi'ur. If a person learns in a shi'ur setting with a group of people and a rabbi teaching, that is also as good as learning with a chavrutah. The Gemara in Ta'anit says that in addition to the fact that somebody who learns by himself without a chavrutah should be subject to the law of the sword, is how the Gemara goes. In addition to that, it actually makes a person more stupid. Lo od ela shemetapshid. It makes a person more dim-witted when he learns by himself as opposed to with a chavrutah. So we see that something interesting. Rabbi Akiva, he had not just one yeshiva. He didn't have an institution. He had talmidim. He had students spread across a wide area of space in many different cities, but he did not accept upon himself a student unless he knew that that student was going to learn with a chavrutah. Rabbi Akiva knew the importance of this and he insisted upon it. The next point the Gemara makes it says, V'chulan metu beperek echad. They all died in one tkufa, in one era. We say that's between Pesach and Shavuot. We'll get to the significance of those holidays in a moment. But I would like to understand, why do I need to know that they all died in one period of time? To teach you, I think it's to teach you that because Hashem wanted to show us that they didn't die because they each had their own separate problems and their own reasons for dying. They all died for the same reason. They didn't respect each other, and therefore Hashem made it that they all died around the same time in order to show us that they died because of the same reason. Now, this idea, shelo nagu kavod ze lazeh, I would like to understand that a little bit more. They did not respect each other. Realize that we're dealing with great tzaddikim over here, and therefore everything that they do is magnified, and any sin that they commit could be that it was much not as bad as the Gemara seems to suggest. Now, something that I'd like to point out over here on this point is, I think that we can maybe make an inference over here. Lo nagu kavod ze lazeh. We're talking about pairs of chavrutot. So what that could possibly mean is the learning partners, the chavrutot, agreed with each other. They learned the Gemara, they learned the Pasuk, and they came to an agreement with each other on how that is meant to be learned, and they had one mehalech, they had one way of learning that they agreed upon. But the zugot, the pairs of chavrutot, disagreed with all the other pairs of chavrutot. Me and you, if we learn something and we agree upon a certain way of learning it, so that's fantastic. But the other chavrutot in the Bet Midrash are not going to learn the same way. No two people are going to learn exactly the same way. So I want to suggest that although the learning partners themselves among each other agreed, but they were not noheg kavod, they did not respect the way that all the other sets of learning partners, all the other zugot, they did not respect the way that they learned. And because of that, they got this terrible death of askara, which we'll discuss in a moment. And I think that that's something that we could possibly take for ourselves, that whether you're in Toronto or whether you're in Israel or anywhere in the world, we have all sorts of different groups of Jews that do things their own way. We have us, the Sfaradim, we have the Ashkenazim, that they say s, and we say t, and the Hasidim say u, and everybody has their own way of dressing, and the way that the hats that they wear, and they don't wear a hat, and the type of kippah that they wear, and the way that they learn and what they choose to learn. The truth is that as long as it's rooted in truth, as long as it's rooted in the Mesorah, it's all perfectly fine. And therefore, what I think that we could learn from this is that maybe I should learn to more respect the other sects of Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people. Just because that's not what I do, or that's not the way that I learn, that doesn't mean necessarily that it's wrong, and I still do have to respect that way of life as well. Now, the Maharsha asks a question on this Gemara. So they didn't respect each other, which is a terrible thing, but we don't see anywhere in the Torah that a person is going to be chayav mitah, is going to be liable to a death penalty because they didn't respect their friend. This seems to be a disproportionate punishment to the crime. And so the Maharsha answers that the reason they were chayav mitah is because not only did they disrespect their friend, but they disrespected them on the topic of Torah. And the Pasuk says, Kihi chayecha ve'orech yamecha, which we make a play of words on that in Arvit. The Torah is our life. Kihi chayecha, it's your life. And therefore, when you make an attack on somebody else's Torah, that's much more severe than just attacking his personality or his career or any other aspect of him. And therefore, midah kenegi midah, measure for measure, you attack someone's life, the Torah, so Hashem commensurately takes away, chas v'shalom, that person's life, midah keneged midah. Now, the type of death that they died, the Gemara says, was askara. And we described a little bit what askara is. But we should know that it is the Gemara says that it's actually the worst type of death. There's 903 possible ways for a human being to die. The most painful and difficult one is askara. This is the worst possible death. Now, the Maharsha also wants to understand, fine, maybe they needed to die, they deserved it, perhaps, but why did they need to die this particular type of death, which is so terrible? And the Maharsha answers that in another place, the Chachamim tell us that if a person is diagnosed with askara, that is a sign that he has spoken Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara it starts in the throat, that's where the words are generated, our vocal cords, and therefore, again, commensurately, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give that person a disease which originates in the throat. Now, I want to point something out here about Lashon Hara. These, again, were great tzaddikim that we're talking about. And yes, the Maharsha says they spoke Lashon Hara, but I think it was a very particular type of Lashon Hara. It wasn't that they were putting the other person's Torah down. They weren't saying they're wrong. I think that each group of Talmidim, each zug, each pair of Chavrutot, they looked at everybody else's way of learning and they said, they're right. I'm okay with that. But they said, my way is much better than theirs. I don't think that they disagreed with anything that anyone else said. I think they said, my way is better. And we see, if that's true, that actually could also fall under the category of Lashon Hara. And sometimes, we do this, I find myself doing this also. We say, I didn't speak Lashon Hara. I didn't say that person was bad. That person does a lot of good. That person's a wonderful family man, and he's a great father and a husband, and he has a beautiful house. But what I have is better. My way of life is better than his. I am more elite than that person. So we tend to say in those circumstances that that's okay, because look, I didn't say he's a terrible human being. I said he's all right, just that I'm better. We see from this Gemara, if the way that I'm learning is correct, that also falls under the category of Lashon Hara. And finally, in conclusion, we'd like to point out another Maharsha. The Maharsha asks, why does the Gemara need to tell us specifically that they died between Pesach and Shavuot? Is there any significance in that particular time of year that the Gemara felt it needed to notify us of that? And he says, of course, yes, there's nothing in the Gemara that is there for no reason. The reason why they died at this time in particular is because the Chachamim tell us that specifically between Pesach and Shavuot is the healthiest time of the year. It's a time which is misugal, is propitious for good health and briut. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it b'hashgacha. He specifically did it that they died at this time to show the world. They didn't die because the weather was bad or there was a snowstorm, cold or too hot. They died at just the perfect time of year when the climate was just right. It must be that they died because of their sins. And so we could possibly learn from here that somebody who chas v'shalom becomes very ill, and the doctors say, I have no idea how you've contracted this illness. It's beyond the doctor. They can diagnose it, but they don't know how it came to be. So that could be that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing this specifically to show that person that it's got nothing to do with any external circumstances, nothing to do with the weather. You didn't catch it. There wasn't anything contagious. It's something to do with you. It's something to do with a behavior that you are committing, which is Hashem finds inappropriate, and Hashem is sending that person a warning sign, asking him to fix that behavior so that he can live a better and more accomplished life. I'd like to thank everybody for listening, and thank you again to the sponsors, and everybody should have a great day.